Ever bought ginger at the grocery store, tossed it in a pot, and watched it just sit there doing nothing for months? Or maybe you got some sprouts going, only to end up with a tiny, shriveled rhizome that was barely worth the effort? Growing ginger can feel like a mystery, but it really does not have to be. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the complete process of growing ginger in containers, from selecting the right piece at the store all the way through harvesting pounds of fresh, homegrown ginger. Plus, stick around to the end where I will show you how to turn your harvest into homemade ginger powder that you can use in teas, baked goods, and so much more. Let us get into it. Ginger is one of the most rewarding crops you can grow in a container. It is versatile in the kitchen, beautiful as a foliage plant, and honestly, much easier than most people think. The best part is that you do not need a tropical climate or a huge garden to pull this off. With the right container, good soil, and a little understanding of what this plant actually needs, you can harvest more ginger than you know what to do with. So let us start by understanding exactly what we are growing here. When we talk about growing ginger, we call it ginger root. But here's the thing. We are not actually growing a root at all. What we are planting and harvesting is a rhizome, which is a modified underground stem. Think of it as the main highway of the plant. The rhizome stores energy, sends up shoots, and expands horizontally under the soil. This is important to understand because it changes how we plant it, what kind of container we choose, and how we eventually harvest it. Once you wrap your head around the fact that ginger grows outward, not downward, everything else starts to make a lot more sense. Now let us talk about selecting your ginger, because this is where your success really begins. You do not need to order anything special online. Just head to your local grocery store and look for fresh ginger in the produce section. What you want to look for are the little bumps on the surface called eyes. These eyes are where the new growth is going to emerge, so the more eyes you see, the better. Sometimes you will even spot little green or white nubs starting to push out, and that is a great sign that the ginger is ready to grow. Grab a few chunks that are plump, firm, and have plenty of these growing points. Avoid anything that looks dried out, wrinkled, or soft. Here's a pro tip that took me a few seasons to figure out. The larger the piece you plant, the faster you are going to get results. A bigger chunk means more eyes, which means more shoots, which means more leaf growth up top and more rhizome expansion down below. More photosynthesis equals more energy equals more ginger. So, do not be shy about planting a nice big piece. Choosing the right container is the next big decision, and this is where a lot of folks go wrong. Remember how I mentioned that ginger grows horizontally? That means a wide, shallow container is going to serve you much better than a tall, narrow pot. You want to give that rhizome room to spread out and explore. I like to use containers that are at least 14 to 16 inches wide and about 10 to 12 inches deep. Something like a wide planter or even a half whiskey barrel works beautifully. Make sure whatever you choose has drainage holes in the bottom. Ginger likes moisture, but it does not want to sit in waterlogged soil. If your container does not have drainage, drill a few holes before you plant. Trust me, your ginger will thank you. For soil, you want a high-quality potting mix that is loose, well-draining, and rich in organic matter. Ginger loves fertility, so do not skimp here. I use a good organic potting mix and sometimes add a handful of compost to give it an extra boost. The loose texture is important because it allows that rhizome to creep and expand without hitting resistance. Heavy, compacted soil will slow everything down and can even cause rot. Now, some folks like to pre-sprout their ginger by placing it in a shallow bowl of water for a week or two until they see roots and shoots starting to emerge. You can absolutely do this if you want a head start. But honestly, I have had just as much success planting it straight into the soil and letting it do its thing. Whatever is going to happen in that bowl of water is going to happen in your pot too. For planting depth, you do not want to bury it deep like a potato. Just press your ginger piece into the soil with the eyes facing up and cover it with about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of potting mix. Give it a gentle press to make sure there is good contact with the soil, and you are ready for water. If you are finding this helpful so far, take a second to subscribe so you do not miss future videos. All right, let us keep going. Watering right after planting is important, but do not go overboard. Remember, there are no roots or shoots yet, so the ginger cannot absorb a ton of water. You just want to moisten the soil enough to signal to the rhizome that it is time to wake up and start growing. I like to water gently until the top 2 to 3 inches of soil feel moist, and then I leave it alone until I see sprouts. Once those green shoots start pushing up, you can increase your watering gradually. Ginger is a tropical plant, so think about where it comes from. Southeast Asia, hot, humid, lots of rainfall. It wants consistently moist soil but not soggy. I check my containers every few days by sticking my finger about an inch into the soil. If it feels dry, I water. If it still feels damp, I wait. As for placement, ginger loves warmth. If you are in zones 9 through 12, you can grow it outdoors year-round. For the rest of us, start your ginger indoors in spring, ideally once temperatures are consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. A warm spot near a sunny window works well, or you can use a heat mat to encourage faster sprouting. Once the weather warms up and frost is no longer a threat, you can move your container outside. Ginger actually prefers bright indirect light or dappled shade rather than full blazing sun, so a spot under a tree or on a covered patio is perfect. Once your ginger is up and growing, ongoing care is pretty straightforward. Keep the soil consistently moist, especially during hot weather. If you are in a dry climate, adding an inch or two of mulch on top of the soil can really help retain moisture and keep those shallow rhizomes happy. I use wood chips or straw, and I reapply mid-season if it starts to break down. Ginger is a hungry plant, so feeding it regularly will pay off at harvest time. I give mine a dose of organic granular fertilizer at planting and then again about 6 to 8 weeks later. You can also use a diluted liquid fertilizer every few weeks if you prefer. Just watch your plant. If the leaves look lush and green, you are on the right track. If they start to pale or yellow, it is usually asking for more nutrients. One thing I love about growing ginger in containers is that you can move it around as the seasons change. When temperatures start dropping in fall, just wheel it back inside or into a greenhouse to extend your growing season. Let us talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, browning leaf tips. This is almost always a sign that the soil is drying out too much between waterings. Ginger does not like to dry out completely, so if you are seeing crispy brown edges, increase your watering frequency or add that layer of mulch I mentioned earlier. Second, yellowing leaves. If the whole leaf is turning yellow rather than just the tips, your ginger is probably hungry. Give it a feeding with a balanced organic fertilizer and see if it perks up within a week or two. Yellowing can also happen from overwatering, so make sure your container is draining properly and you are not leaving it sitting in a saucer of water. Third, soft or mushy rhizomes. This is root rot, and it means the soil is staying too wet for too long. If you catch it early, you can let the soil dry out a bit and reduce watering. If the rot is extensive, you may need to dig up the rhizome, cut away the damaged sections, let it dry for a day, and replant in fresh soil. Fourth, no growth after several weeks. Ginger can be slow to wake up, especially if temperatures are cool. Make sure it is in a warm spot, at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit ideally, and be patient. It can take 3 to 4 weeks to see the first sprouts. Fifth, flowers appearing. Do not panic. Ginger flowers are completely normal and actually quite beautiful. They will not hurt your harvest, and you can even eat them if you like. The plant is just doing what plants do. Harvesting is the moment you have been waiting for. Ginger typically takes about 4 to 5 months from planting to reach harvest size, though you can let it go longer for bigger rhizomes. If you want to do a partial harvest and keep the plant growing, just reach into the soil at the edge of the container, snap off a piece of the rhizome, and let the rest continue to develop. This works great if you are in a warm climate where you can overwinter your ginger and keep it producing year after year. For those of us in colder zones, once frost threatens and the foliage starts to die back, it is time to harvest everything. Tip the container over, shake out the soil, and pull out your ginger. You will be amazed at how much those little grocery store pieces have multiplied. Give the rhizomes a good rinse, let them dry, and they are ready to use. Whatever you do not use right away can be stored in a cool, dark place like a root cellar, or even your refrigerator. And here's the beautiful part. Save a few of the healthiest pieces with good eyes, and you have got your seed ginger for next spring. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning, let me show you how to turn your homegrown ginger into ginger powder. This is one of my favorite ways to preserve the harvest because it lasts forever, and you can use it in everything from teas to stir-fries to baked goods. Start by washing your ginger well and slicing it into thin, uniform pieces. The key word here is uniform. You want all your slices to be about the same thickness, around 1/8 of an inch, so they dehydrate at the same rate. If some pieces are thick and some are thin, you will end up with unevenly dried ginger. Once sliced, spread the pieces in a single layer on your dehydrator trays. I use a basic Nesco dehydrator that I picked up for about $40, and it works perfectly. Set it to around 115 degrees Fahrenheit and let it run for 3 to 4 hours. You will know it is done when the ginger snaps cleanly instead of bending. If it bends, it still has moisture and needs more time. Once it is completely dry and crispy, toss the pieces into a spice grinder or even a clean coffee grinder and pulse until you have a fine powder. Pour it into a jar, label it, and store it in your pantry. Homemade ginger powder is so much more fragrant and flavorful than the store-bought stuff, and there is something incredibly satisfying about going from a grocery store rhizome to a jar of spice you made yourself. So that is everything you need to know about growing ginger in containers for a massive harvest. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you do not miss future videos. And if you have any questions or tips of your own, drop them in the comments below. I always love hearing what is working in your garden. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, good luck in the garden and keep on growing.